Thank you for being here today. We're going to be talking about maximizing your time for success today. And this is a very, very important topic, even though we don't see it necessarily as important and we sometimes take time for granted. If anyone's ever lost a loved one or lost even a pet, you know how much you think of, oh, I remember when this, or I remember when we were younger, or I remember when we did this, or even thinking of yourself as a child, right? So it's really important to really give time value. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we need to do. In order to manage time and create the schedules and routines, goals are needed. And goals should be smart. What I mean by smart is they need to be specific, they need to be achievable, they need to be timely, measurable, and realistic. If you don't have times set or timelines set for your goals, what are you aiming for, right? Even in the gym that I go to a couple different gyms, but one of the gyms I go to, it's a boot camp, and they have what they call focus meetings. During these focus meetings, they set your goals and they set the ability to decide what you want done in what time frame. Do you have a wedding you have to go to? Is there a cruise you're going on that you want to look good for? Whatever, right? We have a destination and we have a timeline. So obviously, if we are looking at losing 100 pounds in 5 days, that's not achievable or measurable or realistic, right? So that would take away two of those. If our goal is to lose 100 pounds in 2 years, that becomes a little more specific, more achievable, more timely, more measurable, more realistic, right? And by having that destination and that timeline, that realistic goal, we're able to achieve it, and then we're able to measure the progress as we go on. So, of course, I'm using weight loss, right? Because that's something that I personally have gone through recently. And it took several years to get to where I am now, where I'm actually happy with my weight. But again, I had to decide that I couldn't do a fix-all 2-day for being able to be at my goal tomorrow. So everything takes time. The world wasn't built in one day, right? So let's go ahead and look at this. And time is valuable. Think about some of the time wasters that we have as real estate professionals. Do we do things that are not really our responsibility? Do we do things that maybe we should let others do and delegate? You know, for instance, calling lenders. Is that something that you could maybe have somebody else do? If you have an assistant, they might be able to call and just say, how are things going? Or if you have an assistant and you're still micromanaging what that assistant is doing, then that's a time waster. For me, time wasters also go in inspections, go in the time waster category. We've talked about that in other compliance chats, but to me, that is a time waster. That is not something that we really need to be at. We can have a much more productive time. And if you think of time as valuable, then you're going to think of it a little bit differently as to whether you should be there or not. So the first concept I want you to really understand is to remember that time has a value. Give it an actual tangible value, because otherwise, if we were to do a true business planning exercise, we're not going to do that today. But if we were, you might be surprised at what you are getting paid per hour. It might not be a very welcome surprise either. So make sure you understand that time is valuable. If you don't, you think of a doctor, of an attorney, they charge you per hour, right? And they charge you heftily because their time is valuable. So let's make sure we get that concept first. Number one, time has value. You may have heard of the Eisenhower matrix. Our past president, Dwight Eisenhower, He was the 34th president of the United States, and he was also a 5-star general during World War II. Well, he presented an idea that later was renamed or named the Eisenhower Matrix. Because in a 1954 speech, Eisenhower quoted an unnamed university president, and he said this. He said, I have two kinds of problems, right? Two kinds, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent. So the reason this comes into play is the Eisenhower matrix takes what he said, and it was actually Stephen Covey that from the 7 Habits for Successful People that came up with the name of the Eisenhower matrix. And what he does is he created a way to organize your tasks by urgency and by importance. So if you look on the screen here, we have 4 quadrants, right? We have the important, which are do's, and then we have the not so do's and schedule for urgent, not urgent, then delegate and delete, not important, right? So the way we're going to do it is we're going to move on to the next one, and it'll make more sense for you. Well, actually, I apologize. I thought I had another slide on it, but basically what you would do is you would have the do's with the tasks with deadlines and consequences, right? And then you would give it either urgent, not urgent, important, not important. Schedule the tasks with unclear deadlines that contribute to long-term success. They're never going to be urgent. The delegate, which are going to be things that you can give to your assistant, to your VA, to your transaction coordinator. And the most important in this 4 quadrants to me is the delete. You want to delete those pretty butterfly distractions. I say pretty butterfly because if we were talking here and a pretty butterfly came by me, I'd be like, oh my goodness, did you see that pretty butterfly, right? And we get sidetracked. So we don't want to have that sidetrack effect. And the best way to do it is by deleting the distractions and those tasks that we do not have to partake in. So being productive is not about doing more, guys. That is a really, really big thing to understand. It's about doing things efficiently. There was a Harvard Business Review that found that 92% of highly productive people follow planned morning routines. Do you have a planned routine? Is there something that you plan on doing every morning besides waking up, going to the bathroom, and having your coffee? Right? So you've got to have that planned routine. You know, when I first started going to the gym at 6 in the morning, I hated it. Then now, if even on vacation, I have to get up and go to the gym. It's become routine. It's become part of who I am because of that routine that was created. So we have to learn to prioritize. So still sticking to that Eisenhower matrix, if you think about urgent tasks are those that require immediate attention. So if something is urgent, it has to be done now. There are clear consequences if you don't complete these tasks because there's a certain timeline. So for example, if we think of urgent tasks in the sense of real estate, let's think of, okay, due diligence is over today, right? So we have to decide what we're going to do with that inspection that you did. Or maybe it was a situation where due diligence is about to be over and you haven't scheduled inspections. That would be urgent because it requires immediate attention and there would be a consequence. Your buyer has now bought that house as is if you didn't follow through, right? So a couple other examples would be finishing a project with a last minute due date, for example, what I just stated, or handling an urgent client request. I'm in town only for today. I have to look at homes today. I have to buy a house today. That would be an urgent task. Or maybe you have a busted pipe in your apartment. Obviously, that would be an urgent task. But urgent are basically something you cannot get around doing right now. Whereas in contrast, important would be maybe planning a long-term project. So I want to go on a business trip to a conference in Savannah next year, right? you can start planning it. And, oh, you know, I've got to get a hotel for that conference, but you don't necessarily have to do it today or right now, right? So that would be a long-term project. Or maybe the professional networking that you're going to set up some client-based networking. It's important, definitely important. I want you to do that, but it doesn't have to be right now. Or regular chores and maintenance projects. And while we're here, I want you to understand that we tend to focus on these important tasks over the urgent tasks because we sometimes don't want to deal with that urgent task. So it's real important and real urgent that we make sure we evaluate our mindset as well to make sure we stay on track. And that's where routines come in. So some of the do tasks. So if we remember that matrix, there was the 4 matrix. And in the do quadrant, that's where you're going to place any of those tasks, either urgent or important. You're going to put them in the do. And when you see a task on your to-do list that must be done now and has clear consequences that and affects those long-term goals, you're going to place it in that quadrant because these are the tasks that are at the front of your mind. Hi, Micheline. Thanks for joining us. So with that, you're going to make sure that you are putting those tasks in that quadrant. Okay. And then some examples might be a walkthrough for closing, right? Or you have deposit earnest money that you have to deposit today. Or maybe there's a closing that's already scheduled at 4 p.m. Or like we discussed, the terminating a contract due to due diligence. If you wait another day, there's going to be clear consequences. So you don't want to have that happen. Then the other quadrant would be your schedule. And these are tasks with unclear deadlines, but they are important and they are going to benefit your long-term success. So this is where you're going to place any of those tasks that are not necessarily urgent, but still important, because these tasks will affect those long-term goals that you've created in your business plan, but they don't need to be done right now, or they don't need to be done now. You can schedule these for later, and you're still going to tackle these, but you're going to tackle them after you tackle the other ones that are in the more important or urgent ones. And there's plenty of ways that you can look at these tasks and really get in order. And we're going to talk about a few ways in just a moment. But some of the tasks that are not necessarily have to be done right this moment, but are still important, could be the creating a new business logo. You know, I don't like my logo. It's kind of passe. So let's create a new logo. Or maybe we have to pick up signs. Now, remember, signs do have to be picked up within 10 days of an expiration or a sale. So make sure you do have that. But maybe if you have 9 more days, you could do it tomorrow instead of today. The same with changing verbiage in MLS. Maybe, you know, it's gotten stale. You want to change it. Again, that wouldn't necessarily be urgent for right now, but it could make a difference for the long-term goal. And the same goes for the creating the new business logos and for, you know, creating pretty much all of these. They're going to be important for your long-term goals, but not necessarily have to be done right now. Then in the delegate quadrant, this is where you're going to place any of those tasks that are urgent, but not important. These have to be completed right now, right? But but they don't affect your long-term goals. And that's more of these are more of a suggestion as far as don't micromanage your VA or your assistant or your inspector, right? These are things that you can allow somebody else to do. They still have to be done, and they have to be done urgently, but make sure you give them to your team so that you are not being burdened with them, okay? And then, of course, we have your delete. Those distractions and those unnecessary tasks. I put some funny things there because they are true distractions, right? Shopping, nap, outing, being out with your grandchildren, etc. But these are just some of them, because some of the ones in real estate that could be unnecessary tasks are, again, going back to what we were saying at the beginning, which is micromanaging your VA, micromanaging your transaction coordinator, going to that inspection when you don't really need to be there. These could become distractions. So be aware of those possible distractions and know that they should be in that delete quadrant if you are trying to manage time. So be very aware of that. Some other ways you can prioritize, that was the Eisenhower matrix, but you also have the ability to color code your tasks. That's another method. Some people like that. Back in the day before computers, I used to carry a big file cabinet, basically one of those portable file cabinets, and I would color code everything. If a closing was taking place in the next couple weeks, it may be yellow, right? But if it was happening tomorrow, I'd color code it to green. And it was a pain because I was switching them from folder to folder, but that's old school. Now you can color code real easily on the computer or however you choose to, or little dots. I've also done that. However works. Here's the biggest thing I can tell you. The biggest thing is the fact that whatever method you choose, the one that you're using is going to be the best method. But another option that I could tell you, as far as if you are using the matrix, is don't put more than 10 tasks per quadrant. If you start thinking about all the things you have to do, you might go crazy and put 20, 30 tasks per quadrant, and then you're going to end up losing it and have burnout. Make sure you're using to-do lists. I use the little Post-it notes, not the physical ones, but on my computer, I have little Post-it notes that remind me of a meeting, remind me of a class that I have to teach or a class I have to prep for, or in your case, a closing or a buyer you have to meet. If that doesn't work for you, just do the way my husband does. He uses a physical to-do list. He's old school. He likes pen and paper. That's fine. Whatever you have to do to make it work it. The same with eliminating those tasks that you have found are just distractions or unnecessary. Do it before you prioritize all those other tasks. You start doing that, it's going to help you. All of a sudden, you're like, well, I really don't have to be at that inspection. So let me go ahead and eliminate that from my tasks. Or I really don't have to look over my VA's shoulder. So yeah, I can eliminate calling my VA, right? So certain things that you can find that you can eliminate, do it. That's what you want to do. By the way, were you guys seeing my other screen, my Zoom screen on there? Make sure you let me know if for whatever.
I see one screen that is
Okay.
here.
Just making sure you're not. I hope you're only seeing the actual PowerPoint. Okay, and then with that, the other thing you want to do is you want to. Well, let me first quote Aristotle. Right, we are what we repeatedly do. So think about some habits. Do either of you have a habit that you want to share that has become a habit that you have to do every day? Either of you? No?
Like cleaning the house.
Okay. And it's something you have to do and you don't feel right if you don't do it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm the same way as you. Some others aren't, right? But yeah, I mean, so if you have something that you have started to do that you just can't go a day or a moment without doing, and it becomes a habit, it goes right to what Aristotle said, which is we are what we repeatedly do. So that's something, good and bad habits. And that creates the habits. Either of you know how many days it takes to form a habit? Anyone know?
21 days.
21 days?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Well,
I would say 660.
wow, you were close. Okay, so Filippo Lally, he's a health psychology researcher at University College in London. And he did a study in the psychology, European Journal of Social Psychology is what it's called. And her research team, I said he, but it's a she, Philippa. She and her research team decided to figure out just how long it actually takes. And they studied all sorts of people. It was somewhere around 100. I think it was 95, 96 people. And they did it over 12 weeks. Each person had to choose a new habit for the 12 weeks. So it was a habit they had not formed, something they hadn't done. So if they'd never worked out, they said, okay, I'm going to choose working out. If they'd never not drank coffee, if they never drank coffee, they chose to drink coffee, whatever it was. It was a new habit, that's something they'd never done. And they did this for 12 weeks. And then they had to report back every single day. And they had to report whether they did it and how it felt. So Philippa Lally studied this for 12 weeks. And she found that where the click happened, I guess you could say, was definitely varied, right? There's no way that you could say it's going to take me exactly 60 days, right? But in her study, she found that it was anywhere between 18 days and 254 days, with the average being 66 days. So the average person, it's going to take them about 66 days before it actually becomes a habit that they feel like they can't go a day without. So it's really important to understand that. And it's important to know that if I'm going to try to do something new, if I'm going to try to cold call, or if I'm going to call my clients, know that it's going to take you approximately 66 days before it becomes part of you. So I thought that was a really interesting subject, because for me, working out was awful at the beginning. I literally had to push myself and beg my husband to not let me not go, because I hated to work out. And now it's like part of me. And my daughter used to tell me, because she loves to work out, always has. She would tell me, Mom, it's going to become part of you. But it was not. It took a while. I think for me, I was probably more in that 254 days, but it took a while for me to actually love it. So the importance of that daily routine does so much more than just make you more productive. It also gives you that structure, and it actually makes your mental health better, because you end up having a work-life balance. You actually have less stress, right? You also have more focus, because you're confident about that progress and the ability to reach those goals. Of course, it all starts with those SMART goals. If you don't have goals, routines really are not measurable. So you need to have those goals in order to know how to establish the routines. But they also had a study in Harvard that showed that people with routines felt like their lives had more meaning. Isn't that interesting? But they also found in that same study that if they didn't have a routine, it actually contributed to feelings of overwhelm, procrastination, forgetfulness, and wasted time. And people were actually apt to have dementia sooner, early onset dementia sooner, from not having a routine. And they found that there were the daily routine benefits that they found were, of course, increased productivity. And because you know what those goals are, right? You have a routine and you're going to do them efficiently and effectively. And by having that schedule in your day, you actually have learned how to prioritize. This is important. This is urgent. This is something I have to do now. This is something I can wait on. And you're able to manage your time better. You know, it's funny. People always say, oh my gosh, Deb, you're superwoman. You have like 5 jobs. You bake bread every day. You take care of your 9 grandchildren. And it's funny. Had you told me that 4 years ago, I probably would have said, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm dreaming, because that's not me. But now I actually feel like I have so much more time than I can still do even more, because I have a schedule. I wake up at a certain time of day. I do the same thing in the morning. And then I'm able to watch my children, my grandchildren. I'm able to be at their events. I'm able to be there for my children to help them with the babies. So it's all, believe it or not, with this routine. And even though I've increased what I do, I feel like I have more time and I can accomplish more, and I accomplish it in less time than when I was doing less and I felt overwhelmed. I hope that makes sense. So this is my pretty butterfly in the background because, again, if you see a pretty butterfly, you're like, "Oh my gosh, did you see that pretty butterfly?" And all of a sudden you're gone, right? So if you have a daily routine, those distractions, that pretty butterfly can just fly on by because it's not going to bother you or distract you. It keeps you focused because that's the biggest goal. You want to be focused. And for those of you or those that are going to be in my class for business planning on Friday, they're going to understand the importance of focus. And I'm hoping to be able to do it online soon. So even if you can't make it Friday, I'll be able to hopefully get you in there. But there's daily routine benefits are one of those is distractions become less, right? And you become more focused. Another one is reduce stress. Like we talked about before in that study. If you have that daily routine, your stress level goes way down. And they've actually done scientific studies on this because you already know what's next, right? You're already knowing where that destination is going. And so that stress and that anxiety is just gone because we are human beings and we like having a sense of control, right? That's why we micromanage. So when you know what your schedule's like, you know where you're headed to, you actually have a greater sense of control. You are feeling like, "Hey, I'm in control." And you have control over your life. You have control over your accomplishments, what you're doing, your activities, and you tend to feel more safe, more capable, more comfortable, and overall happier. Another one is improved sleep. I'm still working on that one. I will be honest with you. I'm one of those crazy people that lives totally well with 4 to 5 hours max. If I have more than 5 hours, I feel like I've overslept. So, but whatever your sleep need is, when you have a daily routine and you actually schedule the time you go to bed every day, you're going to have improved sleep. It actually regulates your body's circadian rhythm, right? That a regular sleep wake schedule does that. And it functions like your internal clock. Have you all ever been on vacation and you're like, "Yes, I can sleep in." And all of a sudden, you wake up at the same time you always wake up, right? Because we have that internal clock. So that's how it is with me. I was just in Tennessee over the weekend and I'm like, "Yes, I'm going to sleep in." Wrong. 5 a.m. I was up. So by 6, I was in the gym. It just makes it easier for your body to produce those neurochemicals. And it does it at the same time because it's created that internal clock. And you end up falling asleep at night easier. And you actually wake up feeling rested. Like I said, some of us are weird. If I get more than 5 hours, I actually don't feel rested. I feel crazy. I feel like, whoa, I feel like drugged. So I have to be really cautious not to sleep more than 5 or 6 hours. But whatever your amount of time needed is, that's what you want to look at. And then, of course, better overall health, because the daily routines that include going to the gym or yoga or meditation or any self care practice, that's going to help you with your health. It's going to actually help with your blood sugar levels, with your digestion, energy. It actually increases naturally when you exercise and have a daily schedule. It actually increases your dopamine in your body as well as your serotonin. You see all those commercials increasing your serotonin and all that. It does it naturally when you have a normal schedule and when you're doing the same habits, forming those healthy habits. They actually give you a feeling of pleasure, of reward, of being calm. It actually makes you happier and in a more positive mood, right? So having a balanced diet, having good sleep, um, will actually support your cortisol levels. And that's going to help you deal with stress. We know we all deal with stress with some of these clients, right? So we need that. Now, On this slide, I want to make sure you understand when you're creating your schedule, there's another thing that I want you to do every day. And I don't care if you haven't implemented a schedule yet, implement this. And this is a habit that you have to implement. Do one thing every day that's for you, not for your spouse, not for your child, not for anybody but you. And it doesn't have to cost money. I mean, I hear people saying, if it was, what's the one thing you would do? And they say, well, I'm going to go shopping. Well, if that's what it is and you have the money to do it, go for it. But I'm referring to if it means giving yourself a facial, if it means giving yourself a bath with the phone off and just relaxing in your bathtub, whatever it means, if it means just sitting quietly with a book, whatever it means, do one thing every day for yourself. And that's something that's a non-negotiable with me. So you do that every single day for yourself. Additionally, with that, what I do and I encourage you to do is at the same time, every day when I wake up, I have a gratitude journal. In my gratitude journal, I write down what I'm thankful for. Usually I try to stay to one item, but it's hard because I'm grateful for so much in life right now. But you try to focus on at least one thing that you're grateful for. And again, by doing that, it puts you in a better mood. I do that as soon as I wake up. I write, I'm grateful for, and try to make it something different every day. Obviously, you're just adding to that list as to what you're grateful for. And guess what? When that really pain in the butt client calls you and tells you that $1 million deal is falling apart, you're not going to be as angry because you're grateful for other things. So try to start a gratitude journal. Just go and buy a cheap notebook. That's all I do. I wait for Office Depot to have those notebooks on sale, and I just buy a ton of them, and I just write something every morning, and I have it next to my bed. So that's something that I definitely recommend you do. So obviously, when you're scheduling, you're like, okay, schedule, calendar. I don't even know what a calendar is, right? There's different ways you can schedule yourself. You might use the Google Calendar, you might use your Apple iPhone calendar, whatever you choose to use something. But there's different methods on how you schedule on your calendar. And that is what you need to figure out. So, for instance, there's time boxing. What time boxing is goal oriented. So say, and I'm going to use the weight loss again, just because that's so prevalent in my life right now. So if my goal is to lose, I don't know, a quarter pound every day, then in my time box, it's going to say plan my meals for the day or plan 30 minutes at the gym or whatever. But basically, it's the time box is, and let me try to put it more into a real estate term, create a new listing agreement. I mean, a listing presentation. So if that's my goal, then I'm going to create a time box with all my to-do list in it. So it's going to be, in order to create a listing presentation, have a photo available. Make sure I've had a good headshot. Make sure I have photos of houses. Make sure I have uploaded statistics about my company, et cetera, et cetera. But what time boxing does is it helps you break down those large tasks into smaller pieces. And then you can complete those pieces, because what the time boxing does is it says, I'm not going to spend more than 1 hour doing this, or whatever time frame you put. So for instance, if I say I'm going to create a new listing presentation and I give myself 1 hour to do it, and I do 1 hour, but during that 1 hour, I'm not done, I still stop. Time boxing, that's a hard time box, by the way. That's called a hard time box. So with a hard time box, I'm going to say, okay, it's been an hour, and I'm going to have to create a new time box for another day, but I'm going to spend 1 hour focused on that. Whereas a soft time box, I might not have necessarily, I may put it on for all day as my soft time box and just work on it all day. And I make sure I start the time box. I see what time it started so I can basically have an idea. But it's all based on one ultimate goal, and then all the tasks, the small tasks that go under that ultimate goal. Obviously, you want to avoid the distractions and focus on it and finish and relax. You may want to take breaks, and it may be several time boxes for days, weeks, months. Okay. But that's what's identified as a time box. And then you have time blocking. That's really probably what I do most. In my time blocking, what I do is, again, you're going to take bite-sized, you're creating those big items. So I need to prospect, right? So I'm going to prospect from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., that's prospecting, nothing else. So again, that's my goal. And during that, when I say goal centered, if I'm going to prospect, my goal is to reach 40 people and have one listing appointment. Okay. That would be the goal. But it's all going to be prospecting during that 9 to 11. So if I get a call about a new buyer, I don't answer that call because that call is not part of my time block, right? My prospecting is my cold calling or whatever I'm doing, calling old clients. So you stick to whatever the like tasks are. If they're calling you from the closing office, closing attorney, because they need some paperwork, again, that's not part of it. So that goes on my other time block. So for instance, 9 to 11, calling old clients and prospecting, 11 to 12, dealing with upcoming closings, 12 to 1, lunch. You see what I'm saying? I hope you're following me. And if something doesn't make sense, let me know. But I like to time block. That's pretty much my style of scheduling. And then you have other methods. They call it eat the frog, which are taking those large tasks and doing them first thing in the morning. So you know there's something you really don't want to do, and it's going to take the most amount of time for the day. You do that first in the day. That's called eat the frog. Okay. And then you have a Pareto method, which is taking care of all the little teeny tasks that might not be real important or urgent, but you just get rid of those during the first part of the day. That's called Pareto. It was an Italian guy that whose last name was Pareto that created that method. And then you have Pomodoro, similar, which is small timed increments. You just say, okay, I'm going to spend 10 minutes doing these tasks. So again, it's a timed increment time, and you take breaks. So for instance, with the Pomodoro method, you might say, I'm going to spend an hour doing the listing presentation, but you're going to take 10 minutes, take a break, 10 minutes, take a break. So they basically split it up into small methods. And then you have the get it done, which is your list, and you just cross everything off the list. That's my husband. He likes to do those. So again, whatever method works, a lot of times it's got to do with how you learn, how your personality is, that you're going to find which method works best for you. And you might try a method and say, that doesn't work. So you're going to need to audit it and see, is this working? If it's not working, maybe time blocking is not working. Maybe you try the eat the frog method. You do whatever you think is going to work best for you. All right. But the main thing is doing it. And then some helpful tips are making sure that you put your phone on do not disturb when you're working on that, and organize your physical space. Because if you have a messy desk and you're about to go and prospect, right? What do you tend to do? Those distractions, right? You're going to clean your desk before you ever call. And now it's been an hour and you've lost an hour of prospecting. So make sure you organize your physical space before you even get started and plan ahead. I look at my schedule the night before every single night to see what I have coming up the next day. I also, on Sundays, I pretty much time block for the whole week, and I look at the whole week. And then really at the beginning of the month, I plan for the next month. So I'm a planner. Not everybody's a planner. So if you're not a planner, this is going to take some practice and making it a habit. But you want to make sure that you are looking ahead and planning ahead, regardless of whatever your method might be. Just make sure you're doing it. And then take breaks. You want to take those breaks. If you feel like, oh my gosh, my head's about to explode, stop, because you're not going to be productive. So go get a cup of coffee, go get some water, go outside, do whatever you have to do. And with that being said, make sure you're scheduling that free time. Put the free time, the vacations, your Bible studies, your religious studies, whatever it may be, you put them on your schedule. And again, those are non-negotiable. Your free time is non-negotiable. If you don't have that, you're going to go crazy. So then I want to share with you about time. And let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second to find this for you. Well, I can't click on it for some reason, but I'm going to tell you that there's a story. It's on Move Me Quotes. And it talks about this little boy that he says to his dad, "Daddy, how much do you make an hour?" And the dad says, "That's none of your business, son. Why are you asking me that?" Right? And he goes, "Oh, I just wondered, could you tell me what you make an hour?" It's like, "Well, if you really must know, I make $100 an hour." And the little boy says, "Oh," and he puts his face down, sad. And then the dad gets angry again, like, "Why would you ask me that? You know what? Go to your room. I'm really angry you asked me that. It's none of your business, right?" So he goes to his room, gets in his bed. Meanwhile, dad starts reflecting and he's like, "You know, he probably needed something." Oh, and that's right. When I apologize, I left out a very important part. So the little boy says to his dad, "Oh, $100 an hour. Can I borrow $50?" The dad's like, "Really? Why does my kid need $50?" Right? And that's when he sends him to his room. And so then after that, the father reflects and goes, "Oh my gosh, is my son in trouble? Why is he asking me for this money?" Right? So he goes to the son's room and he says, "Okay, son, I may have been a little too harsh. Here's $50." And hands him $50. So the boy gets all excited, takes his pillow up, and there's a bunch of crumpled up bills. And he's like counting them. Okay, I have. And he goes, "Okay." And the father's like, "Really? What are you doing? Why do you have all this money? What's going on?" And he goes, "Daddy, here's $100. Can I buy an hour of your time?" Guys, does that not say it all?
That's very sad.
Very sad, but very true. It's realistic. We have put distractions, we have put work, we have put things in front of time, our value on time. We don't understand how much we can't buy that time back. I was talking to my son the other day because he's in the film industry. So obviously, right now, with the strike going on, they finally came to terms, but it's probably going to be February or March before he starts working again. He needs to pay the bills, and he's got 3 little boys under 4. So he's like, "I got to get a job, a normal job, right?" So he tells me about this new job that he found, making half of what he used to make. But he's like, "But they can put me on 7 days a week. I'll work 10 hours, 7 days a week." And I had to explain to him, I said, "Tony, you cannot get that time back with your boys. No amount of money is going to get you that time back." So if you have a plan and you have your goals and you structure your time appropriately, that time does not have to be sacrificed. And what I will say in relation to real estate, guys, is if you have a plan and you structure your plan and you know where your destination is, there is no reason why you won't succeed. The only reason that most people, so let me put it in this picture. If you have 100 agents, 10 of them are doing the majority of the work. It's that 90-10 rule. You can fit 10 agents in a van and they're doing 90% of that work, of the work out there. That's because these agents are the ones with plans. These agents have a schedule and they're maximizing their time. So I challenge you to start creating a habit today. And before you even create that, one of those habits, the very first habit you need to create is doing something for yourself. 2, be grateful for something every day and let yourself know in your notebook. You can share it with people, but you can keep it private too. And 3, this is very important for business. Have a plan. And if you don't know how to do a business plan, find a way to be at my class either on Friday or the next class that I do with business planning, or create or go online and find a business plan. But you have to have a plan, because a plan with, so let me put it this way. If I went to the doctor and said, what is your plan, your treatment plan for my health problem? I don't have one, but let's say I did. And he said, I don't know. I got to figure it out. I wouldn't be very confident in that doctor, right? Same way that if you go into a shareholders meeting and you're the CEO of that business, and they ask you, what is your plan for success for this year? And you say, well, I don't know. Just hoping I get referrals. But you don't know how you're going to achieve those referrals. And you're just waiting for that business to come. And you just say, maybe I'll try a postcard here and there. Maybe I'll call a couple people every now and then. You have no one to blame. You can't blame the brokerage. You can't blame your team leader. You can't blame anybody but yourself for not having a plan. So I challenge you to have a plan. Either get a coach, get an accountability partner, talk to your broker, figure out a way to get started in succeeding. You guys are starting by listening to these classes and being here. That's huge, because a lot of people don't even do that. And the best agents out there always learn.